knows how he died, but her performance as the grieving girlfriend is the most important thing to her.
Drugs led her to prison. She became addicted to tranquilizers, she says, during a rocky period in her life.
She has diarrhea. She's very, very unwell indeed, and Barfield takes her to hospital.
Velma Barfield was convicted and sentenced to die in 1978 for the poisoning death of her boyfriend.
Velma Barfield, notorious criminal. Velma Margie Barfield, a name etched in criminal history, gained notoriety for being the first woman executed in America since 1962. Her ending in 1984, at the age of 52, marked a significant event in the annals of U.S. justice system, especially considering it was the first lethal injection administered to a woman since the reinstatement of the demise penalty in 1976. Barfield's crimes were as shocking as they were tragic. She was responsible for the demises of 4 individuals. However, her story delves beyond the criminal acts. Velma Barfield's life was fraught with struggles, particularly her addiction to prescription drugs. Her dependence wasn't on hardcore substances like heroin or cocaine, but rather on medications like tranquilizers, sleeping pills, antidepressants, and barbiturates. The genesis of Barfield's addiction can be traced back to a nervous breakdown she experienced. This marked the onset of her reliance on prescription drugs, a habit that spiraled out of control. Her medical history reveals a series of alarming incidents involving overdoses, leading to multiple hospitalizations. Between 1972 and 1975, Velma was admitted to the hospital 4 times due to drug-related incidents. The intricacies of Barfield's case not only shed light on her criminal behavior, but also offer a glimpse into the complex interplay of mental health and substance misuse. It becomes evident that her addiction was a symptom of deeper psychological struggles.
Velma Barfield was convicted and sentenced to die in 1978 for the poisoning death of her boyfriend.
This is not a one-off, a personal situation. This is a practice.
Velma's story serves as a stark reminder of the importance of mental health awareness and the need for effective interventions to support individuals facing similar challenges. The manner of Velma Margie Barfield's ending, through lethal injection, marked a somber chapter in the ongoing debate surrounding capital punishment, especially in cases involving women. Her case continues to be a subject of study, raising questions about the underlying factors that contribute to criminal behavior and the appropriate measures for rehabilitation and punishment within the criminal justice system. Background: Velma was born on the 23rd of October 1932 in North Carolina. She was the oldest girl and the second child in a large family of 9 children. However, there were conflicting accounts regarding her upbringing, particularly her claims of physical misuse by her father, which were disputed by other relatives. Despite these challenges, Velma managed to complete some of her education before dropping out of school. At a young age of 19, Velma already had 2 children, a son named Ron and a daughter named Kim, from her first marriage to Thomas. Initially, their marriage seemed happy, and they appeared to be a normal family unit. However, their lives took a turn for the worse when Thomas suffered head injuries in a car accident in 1966, rendering him unable to work. With the family struggling financially, Velma took a job in a store to make ends meet and support her family. Unfortunately, Thomas's accident led him to developing an alcohol addiction, adding further strain to their already difficult circumstances. Velma, trying to cope with the daily stresses of her life, started relying on antidepressants and tranquilizers. The combination of her husband's addiction and her own struggles eventually overwhelmed her, leading to a breakdown and a subsequent addiction to various drugs. Tragedy struck in 1969 when Thomas expired in a house fire. There were suspicions that the fire may not have been an accident, but nothing was conclusively proven. Following Thomas's demise, Velma remarried in 1970 to a man named Jennings Barfield, who tragically passed away within 6 months. It was later discovered that the cause of his demise was arsenic poisoning.
It's total, isolation from everybody that I had been with.
She has diarrhea. She's very, very unwell indeed, and Barfield takes her to hospital.
With limited employment opportunities and desperate to support her drug habit, Velma resorted to forging checks and subsequently slaying those she had defrauded. These actions marked a disturbing and criminal turn in her life as she took drastic measures to continue fueling her addiction. Fatal deception. Velma Barfield's life was marked by a series of tumultuous events that ultimately led her down a dark and criminal path. Born in Eastover, North Carolina, she grew up in an environment tainted by misuse. Her father was reportedly physically insulting, and her mother, Lillian Bullard, did not intervene to protect her. Seeking an escape from this troubling upbringing, Velma married Thomas Burke in 1949. Initially, her marriage to Thomas was characterized by happiness. They welcomed 2 children, and their family seemed content. However, a turning point came when Velma underwent a hysterectomy and began experiencing debilitating back pain. These physical trials triggered a significant shift in her behavior, ultimately leading to a descent into drug addiction. As Velma grappled with her own addiction, Thomas turned to alcohol, exacerbating their marital strife. Arguments replaced their once harmonious relationship. On April 4th, 1969, after Thomas had passed out from drinking, Velma and her children left the house. Upon their return, they were met with a horrifying sight. Their home had burned down, and Thomas was found lifeless inside. Velma's life took another drastic turn when, in 1970, she married Jennings Barfield, a widower. Tragically, less than a year into their marriage, Jennings passed away on March 22, 1971, due to heart complications.
Drugs led her to prison. She became addicted to tranquilizers, she says, during a rocky period in her life.
Once again taken a life, but official records stated that John Lee had died of a heart attack.
Velma's criminal activities caught up with her in 1975 when she was convicted of writing 7 bad checks. As a consequence, she was sentenced to 6 months in prison. Despite the severity of her sentence, Velma was released after serving just 3 months. Velma Barfield's life story is a chilling account of a woman's descent into criminality, driven by a combination of personal struggles, addiction, and a series of tragic events. Her actions would ultimately lead to a shocking chapter in American criminal history, as she became known as the Demise Row Granny. The crimes. Velma Margie Barfield's life was marked by a descent into a chilling pattern of deception, financial fraud, and ultimately, cold-blooded slaying. Born in Eastover, North Carolina, and raised near Fayetteville, her early years were tainted by a tumultuous family life. Barfield's father was reportedly offensive, and her mother, Lillian Bullard, seemed powerless to intervene. Desperate to escape this volatile environment, Barfield marries Thomas Burke in 1949, seeking refuge in a new family of her own. The couple welcomed 2 children, and initially, their union appeared to be a source of contentment and stability. Barfield's criminal activities took a more sinister turn in 1977, when she entered into a relationship with Stuart Taylor, a widowed tobacco farmer. To sustain her drug addiction, she turned to forging checks in Taylor's name. As Taylor likely grew suspicious of the fraudulent activity, Barfield, fearing exposure, resorted to administering an arsenic-based rat poison into his beverages. As Taylor's health rapidly deteriorated, Barfield offered to care for him, ultimately taking him to the hospital when he succumbed to the effects of the poison. Yet, Barfield's dark secret was uncovered through an autopsy, which conclusively identified arsenic poisoning as the cause of Taylor's demise. Following this revelation, she was promptly arrested and charged with his slaying. During her trial, the defense pleaded insanity, arguing that her drug addiction had severely impaired her mental state. However, this plea failed to sway the jury, leading to Barfield's conviction. The jury ultimately recommended the demise penalty, and during the trial,
The last 10 years was just like that.
Knows how he died, but her performance as the grieving girlfriend is the most important thing to her.
Dolly Edwards, a relative of Taylor, was another unfortunate victim of Barfield's sinister plot. Barfield's behavior at the funerals of her victims was particularly striking. She feigned profound grief, creating a facade of genuine mourning. Despite traces of arsenic being discovered in her late husband Thomas's exhumed body, she vehemently denied any involvement in his demise. Her motives for these forced slayings were eerily similar. Demise Row. Velma Barfield's time on Demise Row in Raleigh, North Carolina was marked by a profound personal transformation. Having broken free from the clutches of drug addiction, she grappled with remorse and sought to fathom the unfathomable motives behind her heinous acts. While she couldn't articulate a clear rationale for her actions, she deeply lamented the years when addiction had muddled her judgment and corroded her moral compass. During her incarceration on Demise Row, Barfield underwent a spiritual awakening of striking magnitude. Embracing Christianity with newfound fervor, she became a beacon of compassion and counsel for other female inmates. Within the confines of the prison, she created a small but meaningful pocket of positivity, offering solace and spiritual guidance to those who sought it. Barfield's legal battle to spare her life was a protracted and intricate affair, adding another layer of legal setbacks to her already arduous journey. Governor James B. Hunt of North Carolina ultimately opted not to grant clemency, exhibiting scant considerations for Barfield's religious conversion and exemplary conduct on Demise Row. Some conjecture that Hunt was wary of appearing soft on crime, particularly in the lead-up to the state elections of 1984. As the day of her ending loomed, Barfield confronted the inevitable with an unusual degree of equanimity and acceptance. A day prior to her scheduled ending, she instructed her attorney, Jimmy Little, to abandon all appeals, asserting her demise to meet her fate with dignity. Her demeanor betrayed a striking absence of trepidation, and she even articulated a sense of anticipation, viewing the chamber as her passage to heaven. The tale of Velma Barfield's odyssey through the criminal justice system and her ultimate resignation to her fate serves as a chilling testament to the intricate interplay of remorse, redemption, and the irrevocable repercussions of her actions. Her case stands as a stark reminder of the profound sway of addiction and the intricate moral dilemmas that envelop the realm of capital punishment. Barfield's journey bears witness to the multifaceted complexities of the human condition, offering a haunted glimpse into the depths of the human soul and the transformative power of faith, even in the bleakest of circumstances. Imprisonment and ending. Velma Barfield's tenure on Demise Row at Central Prison in Raleigh, North Carolina, was marked by unique circumstances. She found herself in a section designated for escape-prone and mentally ill prisoners, as the institution lacked a specific area for women facing capital punishment. Remarkably, Barfield was the lone female Demise Row inmate in the state at the time. In response to this, North Carolina later established a designated Demise Row unit for female inmates at the North Carolina Correctional Institution for Women. During her time on Demise Row, a profound transformation took hold of Barfield. Embracing Christianity with unwavering devotion, she dedicated herself to ministering to fellow prisoners. This spiritual journey garnered the attention and commendation of none other than Billy Graham, an influential figure in Christian evangelism. Barfield's newfound sense of purpose and her remarkable efforts in ministering prompted a movement to seek commutation of her sentence to life imprisonment. In a compelling twist, an additional dimension was introduced to Barfield's legal battle. Testifying on her behalf was Dr. Dorothy Otno Lewis, a distinguished figure in psychiatry and an authority on violent behavior. Dr. Lewis asserted that Barfield suffered from dissociative identity disorder, a complex psychological condition where distinct identities or personality states emerge within an individual. According to Dr. Lewis, Barfield exhibited a separate personality named Billy, who claimed to have committed the slayings as a response to the physical misuse Barfield endured. Despite this powerful testimony, the judge remained unmoved, expressing indifference as to which personality was ultimately responsible. Barfield's pursuit of legal recourse faced a final setback when her appeal was rejected in federal court. At this juncture, she made a pivotal decision, instructing her legal team to forego any further appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court. This marked a significant turning point in her journey towards the inevitable.
She doesn't hesitate for a moment. And yet there's still this cycle, this spiral going on in her life.
I know that without him and his strength that has sustained me, I couldn't have made it even thus far.
Barfield is a chameleon. She simply blends in to her surroundings, so much so that
Her attorney would not allow her to say whether she knew what she was doing when she committed her crimes.
On November 2nd, 1984, within the confines of Central Prison, Velma Barfield faced the ultimate consequence for her crimes. Prior to her ending, she offered a poignant statement expressing her remorse and acknowledging the pain experienced by the families affected. Her choice for a final meal, cheese doodles and a Coca-Cola, offered a curious juxtaposition to the weight of the moment. Following her ending, Barfield was laid to rest in a modest rural cemetery in North Carolina, adjacent to her first husband, Thomas Burke. The culmination of her life, marked by its tumultuous twists and turns, was now etched into history. The controversial decision by Governor Jim Hunt to deny Barfield clemency added a political dimension to her ending. As Hunt vied for a U.S. Senate seat against incumbent Jesse Helms, his stance on Barfield's case became a subject of scrutiny and debate. This turn of events further underscored the complex interplay between law, politics, and the deeply personal aspects of capital punishment, appeals, and controversies. Velma Barfield's legal team embarked on a series of appeals to challenge her conviction and sentence. These appeals were rooted in various legal arguments, including challenges to the validity of evidence presented at trials and claims of inadequate legal representation. One pivotal appeal centered on the assertion that Barfield's drug addiction rendered her mentally incompetent during the original trial. Despite vigorous efforts, this particular appeal was ultimately rejected by the court. Barfield's case garnered attention from religious leaders and moral advocates who implored authorities to grant her clemency. They contended that her conversion to Christianity while on demise row, coupled with her subsequent efforts to provide spiritual guidance to fellow inmates, represented a genuine transformation. In their view, this transformation should have been taken into account when evaluating her suitability for ending. As a woman facing the demise penalty, Velma Barfield's case ignited discussions about potential gender disparities within the criminal justice system. Many questioned whether the demise penalty should be applied uniformly to both men and women. Some argued that executing a woman raised distinct ethical considerations, while others maintained that gender should not be a determining factor in matters of capital punishment. The decision regarding clemency for Velma Barfield became entangled in political considerations. Particularly during the gubernatorial campaign of James B. Hunt, there was speculation that extending clemency might be perceived as a stance of being soft on crime, potentially impacting Hunt's chances in the election. This political dimension injected an additional layer of complexity into the debate surrounding Barfield's fate. Velma Barfield's case was characterized by conflicting narratives. On one hand, there was sympathy for her struggles with addiction and mental health issues, with some advocating for leniency based on her troubled background. On the other hand, there was widespread condemnation for the heinous crimes she committed, which resulted in multiple demises. These differing perspectives shaped public opinion and fueled debates about her level of culpability. Overall, the appeals and controversies surrounding Velma Barfield's case encompassed a wide array of legal, moral, gender-related, and political dimensions. These elements contributed to a broader discourse on addiction.
Way of thinking is in Velma's mind. These two are in danger of revealing me for what I truly am.
And then sit there across the table from them and eat your cereal, watch them eat theirs.
Now, drug-free, a repentant Barfield says she regrets the pain she has caused others.
And that control is something that she's become addicted to. So she's not going to just take a load of money and then disappear.
Mental health and the application of capital punishment in the United States. The debates and legal proceedings concerning Barfield's case continue to be subjects of interest for scholars, activists, and individuals engaged in discussions about criminal justice and societal values. Velma Barfield, Tragic Tale. Jerry Bledsoe's demise sentence provides a penetrating examination of the life and crimes of Velma Barfield, offering readers a profound glimpse into a complex and troubling narrative. Released in a timely manner, the book addresses pertinent issues surrounding violence and capital punishment, resonating with the contemporary social climate. The ending of Velma Barfield on November 2nd, 1984, remains etched in memory, stirring emotions and sparking polarized reactions. The anticipation leading up to that fateful night was palpable, amplified by the stark divide among demonstrators, those bidding farewell to Velma with signs reading "Bye Bye Velma," and others mourning her as a tragic figure. This stark polarization reflects the profound impact she had on individuals, provoking tearful empathy and vehement revulsion in equal measures. Bledsoe's narrative unveils the harrowing extent of Barfield's multi-drug addiction over a span of 9 years. She obtained prescriptions from more than 24 doctors for an array of addictive substances, including barbiturates, narcotics, sleeping pills, and antidepressants. All in addition to Valium. This addiction became an expensive and precarious habit, rooted in her profound need for these substances. The narrative delves into the destabilization of Velma's life and marriage, with the onset of her husband Thomas Burke's alcoholism. What began as occasional beers after JC meetings quickly escalated into full-blown alcoholism, ultimately culminating in his demise in a fire she later admitted to setting. This environment became a crucible of despair, with Velma resorting to extreme measures to maintain her employment and sustain her addiction. Her actions spiraled into a cycle of overdoses, fraudulent use of checkbooks, and ultimately, the use of arsenic as a lethal means to address her predicaments. Jerry Bledsoe's meticulous account underscores various dimensions of Velma Barfield's tragedy. It delves into the pharmaceutical industry's ignorance regarding addiction and the unpredictable nature of drug reactions. Moreover, it highlights the socioeconomic factors at play, portraying Velma as a poor woman tethered to the slightly more affluent strata of rural society. The book paints a vivid picture of Velma's family and their struggles, offering a glimpse into the complexities of their lives. It also shines a light on the valiant efforts of Velma's children, Ronnie and Pam, who watched their mother with anguish and made continuous attempts to intervene. While Velma's spiritual awakening in prison may be a common narrative among convicted slayers, it adds a layer of introspection to her story.
It's her relationship with God, she says, that has enabled her to survive her confinement.
I believed her. You know, it wasn't a question of whether I thought she was not telling the truth.
So scheming, so ruthless, that it almost takes my breath away.
When you sat down to talk to her, she's very quiet and very soft-spoken and very sincere.
However, the book could benefit from a deeper exploration of arsenic poisoning as a distinct phenomenon, particularly its prevalence in North Carolina, its gendered nature, and its tendency to be employed within intimate relationships. Furthermore, a comparative study between Velma Barfield and fellow arsenic prisoner Blanche Taylor Moore could offer intriguing insights into the intersection of love, dependency, and resentment in these crimes. Bledsoe's thorough examination invites readers to grapple with the complexities of Velma Barfield's life, leaving them with a profound understanding of the circumstances that led to her tragic fate. Cultural impact and legacy. Velma Barfield's life and crimes left a significant mark on American culture, particularly in the realm of true crime. Her story became a focal point for discussions on addiction, mental health, and the criminal justice system. Here, we delve into the cultural impact and legacy of Velma Barfield. First and foremost, Barfield's case shed light on the complexities of addiction. Her dependence on prescription drugs, a seemingly innocuous form of substance misuse, evolved into a destructive force that led to a series of slayings. Her story served as a basis for various crime dramas, highlighting the enduring fascination with criminal figures, especially those who defy societal norms. These fictional adaptations further cemented Barfield's place in American cultural consciousness. Beyond the immediate aftermath of her ending, Barfield's legacy endures in discussions surrounding addiction, mental health, and criminality. Her case continues to be referenced in debates about the appropriate treatment and punishment of individuals struggling with addiction or mental health disorders. Additionally, Velma Barfield's story serves as a cautionary tale about the dangers of unchecked prescription drug use. It underscores the importance of responsible medical practices and patient education to prevent the misuse of potentially harmful medications. In summary, Velma Barfield's life and crimes had a profound cultural impact.
A drug nightmare. Days of not knowing where you are or what you've done.
Because then her control and her power is gone, and that is something that she's addicted to at this point in time.
Simply because of his reaction and found out that he had been poisoned with arsenic.
I'm sorry for the hurt that I've caused so many people.
Resonating across various facets of American society, her case raised critical questions about addiction, mental health, gender, and capital punishment. As a result, her legacy endures in discussion about these complex and multifaceted issues. That's all for this video, folks. See you next time.